it is now the responsibility of the author, in this case, the Director General, to counter this negative opinion and show why that negative opinion is not correct. The purpose for this position that is taken by the authority in Kenya School of Government, in this case being the Director General, is to discount the negative and generate the positive view of the institution. In a different situation, in the different contexts, the other side will look at it as either propaganda. The other side might look at it and give it a name. Probably they leave it. If they don't call it propaganda, they probably are going to call it a public relations scheme. Because here he is in discounting the negative that has been put out there in the public domain and countering the negative image. It is now the responsibility of the author, in this case, again, I repeat, the Director General, to give a rationale of an even supporting or significant facts with regard to the position taken by the organization. So as he does this, there are certain key things that will be upmost in his delivery. Number one, first goal, clear the negative perception or promote a positive perception. Second goal, what it becomes the responsibility of the Director General to answer the lingering questions that have even brought up the entire situation into the public domain with believable, keyword here, believable evidence. Believable. Sometimes we say bankable evidence. So you're supporting the position that you're now putting out there. You are clearly strategic. The strategy here is discount the negative, promote the positive. But at the same time, don't use so much words such that the message is lost in translation. So in other words, also be concise. So you will not find a position paper that is so huge that people get tired of reading it. No, normally it will be very brief. If it goes so far, if it is so large, probably it will be just about 5 pages. But in those 5 pages, you have discounted the negative and promoted the positive. In this case, of course, it means you have looked at what is the accusation. What is the one that is giving a negative picture of the organization? So that each of those items are counted and said, unlike what you've been told, unlike what is already existing in the public domain, this is not the situation. This is actually what it is. It is a misinterpretation of the public. In fact, the public has been misled. In essence, ladies and gentlemen, when you do a position paper, like an opinion piece, like a press statement, like a ministerial statement, and things like that. We are essentially doing a marketing job. Yes, it is even said that a good marketer will sell ice to an Iceman. Ice which exists in plenty where the people of Iceland are. But it's packaged in a way that the man from Iceland will only realize it is ice once it's already in the stomach, consumed. Counter the negative, bring out the facts. Yes, and why is this important? It's important because we work in the public domain, and there are so many issues that might arise that whereas the public might be expecting that we know everything, we at that particular point in time, we might actually not be in the picture, but it is not good for us to say that you are caught unawares. In fact, you would rather put it out that, yes, we realize that this and this has happened, but we have already taken cognizance of the situation and we are redressing it. In fact, one of the two, we are doing 1, 2, 3 to remove us from where we are to where we expect to be. So yes, that's why there always be a situation that we need to redress. We might agree that yes, it is not good at the moment, but we have to give hope that yes, the situation is not going to last. It's not going to be like that all the time. We will change the situation from the negative to the positive. In essence, then, when we are preparing any kind of opposition paper, we are taking the lemons, the bitter end of it, and converting it into lemonade, into something consumable, so that it's no longer a lemon, but it is a nice glass of juice called lemonade. The consumption of milk. The final details about this I'll share with you on the slides that I have here. I think Mr. Njoroge will give me the class email address that I will send this to. So, key things, there are 3 key things when we're working on a position paper. Be very keen on the subject matter. Under the subject matter, there are 4 key things that will be under it. Oftentimes, when it's a position paper, you are working on a controversial issue. So before you do that position paper, please do your research. Look at what the positives and negatives are. Acknowledge the negatives, but elevate the positives, even if the positives are so few. The major point here is to ensure that the public does not look at you from a negative point of view, where they are despondent. You do not want the despondency to be spread. Try to minimize that. Yes, sometimes when I reach this point, I normally say, that is why we have the hospices. Why do we take people to hospices? The situation, we don't normally just tell them, okay, sorry, Mr. Musundi, your condition is completely unmanageable. Wewe kwenda nyumbani ukufe. No, we don't do that. We do not do that. We keep, in my community, we say this, that when a rat or a mice is biting you, it bites you and it blows in a puliza, so that you really do not feel that part of you is being bitten off. Salve. So keep the identity of the issue top in your mind. Secondly, because you've already done your research, you already know what the issues are. You already know, you've weighed out what are the pros and the cons. It is now, a second stage is to now build the argument. Get the supporting views. Yes, whereas you will acknowledge the negative, identify a counter argument to these negatives, so that you build the case. Do not discount and say, no, it didn't happen. No. Because that's the reason why you're doing a position paper. It happened. It is now a controversial issue in the public domain. It is now a controversial issue in the public domain. So you're trying to counter. And then now, once you have
Halo mwalimu. We lost the lecturer, Mr. Musundi.
I've been speaking to myself. I didn't know.
Yes, a minute ago.
Okay, so I've not lost much ground. Eh? Sorry. So yes, I was saying, you do the drafts, the first draft, the second draft, see whether you, after you do the drafts, do they make sense? And probably get a third party, someone who is not within your own bracket, and find out. And find out, what do they think? What is the opinion? Do they buy your argument?
We can't hear you.
Hey, strange. You're hearing me now?
I can hear you.
All right. So you give as a third party. So let them go through that statement. Does it make sense? Is it convincing? Is it convincing? Ladies and gentlemen, you probably remember that we had a situation within the government the other day, which really didn't turn out very nicely. The situation was with regards to how to handle foreigners. So how do foreign organizations and foreign entities deal with institutions, for example, counties? The common practice, ladies and gentlemen, is that all this needs to go through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. But then the statement was put out that was saying you can go directly without the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. That didn't sit very well with many officers who've been in public service before, because they say, no, that is really not it. But suppose actually you, ladies and gentlemen, were given that task to do a position with regards to why the government has decided that's the way to go. It is not popular, but it's controversial. It is not popular, but it is very controversial because that's not the conventional way. So you will notice that it's situations like this that we actually do write position papers. So I will pause there just to get a feedback from you. Any question before I now move to the policy brief? Hello? Hello? Is my mic muted again? No one is hearing.
No, we can hear you.
No,
All right.
we can hear you, Mr. Musundi.
Okay, any question? Before I move to the policy brief?
Hello, Mwalimu, I
Yes,
have a
Mr.
question.
Yes, Okong.
Yeah, this is on position paper. So the question is, like in most cases you've seen, like I want to give up an example with our Kenyan context.
Yes.
Regarding insecurity. So there are a few instances that you may find that maybe, let me use the word terrorists have hit or and killed some government security agents. And the public outrageous, they would want to know the position of what has been apparently reported by on social media.
Yes.
Because in today most information normally come out immediately on social media. So the
Yes.
ministry in charge would definitely, sometimes they give updates and sometimes in most cases they don't.
Okay.
So in this case, even if they give updates, you will see their position is that we have we have sent maybe DCI, and they are actually right now they're currently on ground carrying out investigation on the matter. More updates will be shared as soon as it is done. So in that case, if you look at what you explained to us, that you have to, I think that is exactly how it should be, but on the actual ground, it is not like that. What is your take on this?
And that is the reason why we are doing a position. So when the Ministry of Interior does that, Bwana Okongo, what they're actually doing is that they are giving the position of the ministry, and therefore by extension, the position of the government. At that particular point in view, they are already clearly owning up that there is indeed a problem. Yes. But they are not sitting on their hands. They are doing something about it. Yes, in this case, yes, that statement, either if it is done by on Twitter or it is done by a press statement or a ministerial statement, all of them in their different jurisdictions are position. They can be equated to position papers. Now, the main point is that they are giving the position of the government, and that's why it can't just be anybody. It has to be someone who has that responsibility. So it could either be the minister or the PS.
Yes.
Even if it is on Twitter, it has to be authorized by the official spokesperson.
Very true.
Yes.
Okay, thanks, sir.
But thank you very much for that, Okome. That helps me a lot in actually clarifying this point. Thank you. There was another one?
Yes, Mr. Musundi.
Yes.
Mine is just is a small question.
Yes.
How long should a controversial issue stay in the public domain before it's responded to? And two, need the government respond to every controversial situation? Because I remember during the era of the former President Kibaki, he was not responding to most of those issues and they died natural deaths. So at what point do you say we want to respond so that now you do not keep on firefighting maybe an issue that will die out naturally? When do you know which issue to have a position paper on and which one you shouldn't, and the time within which that should be responded to? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Masaki. In this case, it will be the weight, because you see, at the end of the day, government is responsive to the civilians, to the citizens. So, how much does it weigh in the public opinion? Does it impact on the citizens' view of the government performance? So the responsible office, be it the office of the official of the government spokesperson, or in this case, if it is organizational, the office of the Director General, for example, of Kenya School of Government, we look at it. Does it have an impact? Would it be costly if it was ignored? I will bring a case back to you. For example, there was I can't remember the exact year, but there was a drought, which for many of drought and famine that happens very frequently in our republic. And unfortunately, we had in the field an assistant chief who might not have been exposed to proper handling of information, of government information. And he went around giving data, for example, saying so many people have died out of this hunger and what have you. And it brought a serious controversy. It's unfortunate because of that. Of course, the assistant chief actually ended up losing his job. But at the same point in time, the government needed to respond because it made the government look like it is negligent on its part. The same situation happened during the outbreak of COVID-19, sometimes in the year 2020, around April there, where an employee of Kenya Airways took photographs of a plane that had landed from China, purported, we really do not have full information to know whether actually it happened or not, purported to have landed from China and shared it on social media. Now it put government in a situation because government had already passed information to the public that no planes from outside the country are allowed into the Kenyan airspace. Now, there were other incidences of hunger and drought. There were other incidences of planes landing, but the ones that really touched on the performance of the government are the ones that got responded to. So that we might not respond to everything, but there are those ones that might indicate maybe that the government is incompetent or something like that. Bringing to disrepute are the ones that now have to be responded to. I hope, Madam Masaki, I've addressed that one.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
All right. Any other? Any other? All right. If there is no any other, now we shift to the policy brief. Again, this one is a document, but it's a document meant for a completely different audience. Whereas a position paper is meant for public consumption. Policy brief is not meant for public consumption. It's meant for policymakers. So its outlook, its language, its format is completely different. Whereas the position paper would be simplistic because the main target here is the public who are unsophisticated. For the policy brief, it is different. It is different because from there, government decisions will be made. It is really not now about the view of government. It is now about the actions, the outputs, the expectations of what the government is supposed to do, how it is doing it. So yes, it is true that you did some research when it came to preparing a position paper. But in this case, the research that you did for the position paper is somehow meant to give a positive light. When it comes to a policy brief, on the other hand, it is not about the positive light. It is about what is achievable, what is feasible, what is manageable, and what is not. So the objectives, the target group are different when it comes to a policy brief. And ladies and gentlemen, there's a reason why it's called a brief. Because the persons in which this one is prepared for do not have time. They are constrained for time. In fact, for these ones, the policymakers, it looks like 24 hours is really not enough time for them. They would prefer that maybe we have 36 hours in a day because there's so much to be done and so little time. And the level of expectation in terms of performance is extremely high. Whereas the position paper deals basically with controversial issues, policy brief might not be controversial at all. If anything, it is almost mundane. However, it is this mundane its mendacity that now makes it really critical, because without this, not much can be achieved. For example, there is an officer here who said he's from Athi Water Works. One of the key policies that were there during the early 80s was water for all by the year 2000. Long stretch. By the time that policy was being made, it looked feasible. Because along the way, there have been revisions. There have been revisions. So we do not bend when it comes to a position, a policy brief towards what is maybe some kind of bias. This is really not a marketing tool, unlike the decision paper. It is essentially neutral, essentially neutral. In fact, the purpose of a policy brief is to evaluate the options available, so that the policy maker is not tied to just one item. And then, of all the options that have been presented in a policy brief, the policymaker has an option of asking the drafters, the ones who prepare, the technical team, how practical are the options, the solutions being offered? And they will use many parameters. For example, you know, our political cycle is 5 years, nominally 5 years. In actual fact, it is 3 years. Nominally 5 years, because normally we do an election for 1 year, and they get into electoral office from 1 year to 5 years. But in the actual fact, before now, these things take off. So the effective time will be 3 years. And therefore, these policymakers, being politicians themselves, realize that if we are not able to get these things out in 3 years' time, we are fried. So they, as policymakers, would want very practical solutions that are within constrained time frames. Not only that, not only are they practical, but they are also actionable when it comes to the recommendations that are proposed. So, key items when it comes to policy brief. What is this particular policy addressing? What is the problem? After identifying the problem, what are the options? What are the possible solutions to the problems? Among other things, what would be the consequences of either one, not taking action, ignoring, or taking action, yes, but that will spill over? What has been done before? Why did what was done before not successful? And therefore, having that kind of background information, what is the most appropriate way forward? Option 1, within the timeline. Option 2, if option one fails, will this one at least give mileage of or a modicum of success? And of course, the other option is, what would happen if we do not do anything with regards to this? And you know, all this is discussed within a very confined time. So the drafters have to be very sensitive, because essentially these ones, the target group is policymakers, and they have timelines in them. So the difference here with the position paper might be unlimited, but a policy brief is time dependent. Yes, you will find that a lot of this will be generated from those documents that are done by our political parties. We are a multi-party state. Those documents are normally called the manifesto. So they are those promises that have been put in that manifesto. And of course, politicians being politicians, they will say this will be done the first year that we will be in office. So the drafters, of course, as a politician on the rostrum, they will say this, but really the heavy lifting has to be done by the ones who are drafted. So they have to consult. There is a lot of consultation that has to go on here. It also means that you have to look back because the things that this particular policy brief is addressing, oftentimes they are not new. They have been there. So why did they fail? And why do you think you have a better option? This comes out clearly with the constraint of time. Of course, we don't even talk about resources, because resources always are constraints. Always. Always. So in fact, among the things that you will be, when you're doing a critique of the previous policy, you will find that yes, because they were not well resourced. So in this case, you will, it will be taken as part and parcel of this. So you know the environment in which you're going to operate in. It is resource constrained. So that would not be new. That would not be new. That would not be new at all. So, in summary, when it comes to the policy brief, the audience, policymakers, they also do not have time. So get to the point. Don't beat about the bush. Give options, practical, actionable options. These practical, actionable options are what will be showing up as your recommendations. Be as objective as possible here, because your intention should be to help the policymaker achieve. Yes, although your audience is specialized, please, please, please avoid jargon. Avoid jargon. Be simple. Be simple. Again, I will pick up from the politicians. When they pick a slogan, it is very simple, so that each and every voter goes to the ballot speaking about that slogan. That slogan could be actually just a summary of an entire book, but it has been simplified to that level. Simplified to that level. Yes, it also needs to be evidence-based. This evidence is the one that will now help the policymaker pick one of the options other than the other, because the evidence will be bearing them out. But please, even as you're doing this brief, don't just give one. Sure. Give more. Give more. I would want to pause there and open up for questions again. Are we there? So these policy briefs, ladies and gentlemen, could be provided either for any policy organ. This could be a council, this could be a board, this could be a committee, this could be a task force. But it needs to be brief. In fact, for this particular one, I normally say, I refer to our own building here. In Embu, we have a 5-story building. We have a 5-story building. So it is protocol that when we have visitors, they get to the lift, and the first thing they do is to go to the director's office to sign the visitor's book. So normally I say this, when you have a policy brief, you should, by the time the director's office is on the 4th floor, by the time you are actually arriving at the director's office, the policymaker would already know exactly what you say. So you've already given an overview of that policy brief. Of course, now, when they want more details, now they will ask you for more documents. But by the time you're actually reaching the 4th floor, they have an idea of what you're talking about. In business studies, normally it's called an elevator pitch. Okay, I welcome questions, opinions. Are we there?
Yes, Mwalimu.
Yes, yes.
This is Masaki. I'm asking.
Yes.
The policy paper.
Mm-hmm.
When who initiates the need to do that policy paper? Is it the CEO? Does it come from the politicians? Who initiates? And then I think it's also important we get some examples, at least for the position paper, we have many examples, but for policy brief, I think I've not been exposed to policy briefs.
Okay.
Maybe we can get examples. Thank you.
Okay. So let's the policy brief usually is a document aimed at the policymakers. The policymakers would actually have, for example, mandates. What are the mandate of that particular entity? If it is for a political entity, in this case, maybe the office of the member of county assembly, what have you, this would be found probably in that document they say that is normally called a manifesto. If it is a state organ, for example, the anti-counterfeit authority, it will be in their establishment document, the act that forms them, so that the mandate is out there. So it will be coming from a policy organ. That will be the source. That will be the source that we would want probably maybe they're saying they're saying that our current setup, the policies for this particular organization, because we are an advisory entity, is kind of now past sell by debt. But we need to advise government in the new situation. So how do we go about this? So yes, so the council or the committee or the board oftentimes will be the source of this. So they would mandate the management to generate this, because at the end of the day, they will be owning that policy. So the governing authority will be the source. That governing authority might be coming from the mandate, or if the mandate, which sometimes are expressed as terms of reference. We had the presidential task force on CBC, for example. So from their terms of reference, that is where the different policy positions, the policy recommendations were coming from their terms of reference, where they were talking about, for example, funding of higher education. When they are talking about the requirements for the different teachers for the CBC system. So from their terms of reference, then the different policies will be generated. So this, of course, once these terms of reference come out, they will be given out to the secretariat, which oftentimes is led by the CEO. So the CEO would constitute teams to now come up with different deliverables. Those deliverables are the ones that now can be concretized into policy brief. Masaki, I hope I've been able to clear the air on that one.
Yes, thank you.
Yes. So all these governing entities, boards, councils, task forces, yes, they are source. They are the ones that now give out these assignments, because you will find that many of these entities do not the nature of many of these entities in our country are much more advisory rather than executive. So they are not there 8 to 5, Monday to Friday. In fact, use through the Mwongozo document, they have a limited number of times that they can actually convert in a meeting. So they are not there all the time. So they would now have this as the workload for the secretariat. So the secretariat now, the head of the secretariat will now give out, give out assignments to the different teams to now come up with this. Of course, now at that point, as the head of secretariat, he or she will be the recipient of the different policy briefs. Before now, he or she now passes it to the respective council, committee, or board for onward deliberation, adoption, and now implementation, including also review. Thank you, Masaki. Any other? Any other? Carolyn?
Yes, I'm listening. I'm keen following.
Okay, so I was wondering if you have a question.
No question.
Okay. Mheshimiwa Kajuju?
Yes, Mr. Musudi, I'm listening. Maybe
Yeah.
now that you've provoked me,
Yes.
just maybe to share some experience.
Yes.
There are times that you find a legislation, maybe an act of parliament or a certain law is made
Yes.
and passed before a policy. For example, the Access to Information Act was passed before the national policy was made. So the national policy is being drafted now. So I just wanted to know now that maybe the Constitution would provide for an Access to Information Act, and then the government does not produce a policy brief, but then members of parliament will proceed and pass that law. So what should come before the other? It's the case of the chicken and the egg, the chicken and the hen and the egg. So what
Yes.
should come first?
Normally, Mheshimiwa, policy is the mother of everything else in a normal circumstance, but the policies can be revised. And of course, now once they get revised, everything else now has to come back and conform. For example, the governance policy of the state of Kenya is the Constitution of Kenya 2010. But it doesn't mean that the entity, the state called Kenya, has not been in existence when there was when the Constitution 2010. In fact, the state itself, the Republic of Kenya, is older than the Constitution. However, every other thing now has to be aligned to the new kid in the block called the Constitution of 2010, because the Constitution of Kenya 2010 then becomes the governing policy document for the entire state. So the normal position is that the policy supersedes any other. So thank you.
I think
Yes.
Constitution is what I
Noted.
said.
Yes.
The 2013 Science, Technology and Innovation Act was
Yes.
passed, and it has been in operation, and is when now we are developing the STI policy.
Yes.
So I think the position where Madam is, we as scientists also in that path again. We are developing the STI policy now, yet the act has been in action since 2013.
Yes. 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 So eventually, it is. But it doesn't mean that it was even the Communication Act came in because there was already I think 1998, 1997, that's when there was the first communication, not really the first, but a revision from an earlier status. So that now, along the way, there is that dynamism. But usually it is, for example, you can see I use the task force for presidential task force for the CBC. You can now see it is coming to align everything else. Unfortunately, the newest thing here is the policy itself, but it is now aligning everything else to it, because at the end of the day, that is what the state wants to be headed. The point is that no government operates without policy. Policy will give birth to legislation. Policy will give birth to regulation. Policy will give birth to orders. But at the same time, again, we can realign so that yes, the law is there, then the policy is developed. Oftentimes, the laws, the regulations, the standards are often made to conform with the policy, or rather to bring to effect the policy. Thank you for that addition. Another one? Okay. Now at this point, Bwana Njoroge, you had something to say? Bwana Njoroge? Okay, let me just check. Maybe his mic is giving him a problem. Sorry, Daisy, you had, I thought I saw your hand.
Oh, yes.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Before I start looking for Mr.
Prof,
Njoroge. Yes.
Yeah, before you go, I was just following Honorable Florence Kajuju's comment.
Yes.
And I think you've answered what I wanted to ask when she was asking that there was an act which came before the policy. And I think you've answered. I just wanted to find you to clarify that a policy brief is done on an existing policy already.
Yes,
and not a new one.
No,
I think you've answered.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So now you can allow me to get Mr. Njoroge on the phone. Looks like his mic is muted.
Okay, so thank you, Mwalimu. So sorry for that. I was somewhere kidogo out. So by tomorrow, I'll have created the lists. I'll send it in the WhatsApp. You'll see which group you are in. And then usually what you are going to focus on, the thematic areas will give according to the current national government development plan, that is PITA. So those are the thematic areas that will give you now to think of an area where maybe you might need to write a position paper on, or an area where you would wish to write a policy brief. So the team will agree which one will be much better for them. Otherwise, I can see Daisy, your hand is up. Daisy, talk to us. Okay, Daisy, I think so. Maybe you just raise the hand. You forgot to lower it down.
Sorry.
So yes. Oh, yeah. Continue.
No,
Okay.
sorry. I think I forgot. Sorry.
Oh, you forgot to lower. Okay. So the groups, I'll create you randomly on my end. I'll just download what you gave us in the official details, and then I'll mix you. And then the advantage of mixing you is just to ensure no one from the same organization finds themselves in the same group unless maybe it has been impossible for me to ensure that. So as much as possible, just try to ensure you're all from different organizations. And the advantage of that is that it will also, you now get to learn how to work with the remote teams and be able to pull this and be able to do the policy brief or the policy paper as advised by Mwalimu. That will also send you notes and also the guide that will take you through. So by tomorrow, I'll send you all the documents so that you can begin early. And it's good you can agree earlier, meaning again, you'll also need to also create other sub WhatsApp groups so that you can be able to, each team can be able now to communicate with its members, and so that you're able to finalize on either the policy brief. But in the meantime, we'll also send you samples. I know Mwalimu will also send that to me, and I'll be able to upload that into the WhatsApp platform. So I'll give you samples of different policy briefs that have been done by other previous groups, and also others also. And also I can also advise you, KIPRA is also another organization that has done so many policy briefs. And also our different institutions and universities also, I've seen them also do lots of position papers. So theirs, they do it for academic purposes. So you can also look at them. So I'll just share a few from different organizations, and also those which have also been designed by different team members who had taken, that is, who went through this course. So up until there, let me just pause there unless there are questions. But otherwise, I'll just ensure as much as possible none of you is from the same organization being in the same group. That way, it will be a good, sweet experience on how to coordinate online team members from different locations and different places. I hope that will be okay for you. So by tomorrow, I'll have the lists. And also in the meantime, the thematic areas will be informed by the current national development agenda of the government, that is PITA. So from any of those areas, you can start thinking in whichever area where you can wish to write a policy brief or a policy paper on. So up until there, I'll wish to pause. Unless there are questions, maybe you can invite the spiritual leader to pray for us.
Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Moses,
Yes.
for those closing remarks.
Yes.
And I want to thank you.
Okay, but before you pray, I can see Mwalimu has raised her hand. Musundi?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, Njoroge. The slides, is there a class email address? I send the slides.
Oh, okay. Just WhatsApp me, and then I'll be able to. I'll also include in the WhatsApp. I think so. That's much better. I'll include in the WhatsApp so that you can send them directly. Mwalimu, is that okay? Let's have them in the WhatsApp.
I'm not very good at sending it to WhatsApp.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I can see Samuel. Samuel, you have raised your hand. Maybe you're proposing another suggestion. Or maybe Mwalimu just send me in my email. I'll be able to download, and then I'll put them in the WhatsApp. I think so. That's okay. Okay. Samuel, I can see your hand is up. Samuel, talk to us. Otherwise, Mwalimu tunashukuru sana. In fact, where is Prezo? Prezo should appreciate Mwalimu. Where is Prezo? Prezo, talk to us. Okay, let's have then maybe Caroline. Caroline, please appreciate Mwalimu before maybe I invite now James to pray for us.
Okay, Caroline. There are two Carolines.
Deputy. Is the deputy Prezo?
I think that one is Owade. Caroline Owade.
Owade. Yeah, yes. Owade. Yeah. Please go, Caroline.
I am not Owade, I'm Owako.
You're Owako.
Yes, so let me let the Deputy Preso do the necessary.
Yeah, so Deputy Preso, please do.
I've had a sound backlash. It's come. You can hear me now.
Kabisa, loud and clear. Karibu sana.
Okay. I would like to appreciate our tutor today, Mr. Laban Musi. Thank you for so much for the enlight on the position paper and policy brief. I hope when you send the slides, we shall get much more insight on the same. Finally, let's thank God and believe God for this session. Almighty Father, thank you for we started the session and ended it well. Continue being with us as you guide us to this task. And in Jesus' name I pray and believe. Amen.
Amen. Okay, so thank you very much.
Amen. Thank you.
Okay, asante James,
Okay,
naona
thank you,
hata leo
ma'am.
umesaidiwa na deputy.
Asante.
So asante.
Thank you so
much.
Okay.
Aya,
Enjoy your evening.
karibu.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so thank you everybody. Have a good evening.
Thank
Asante.
you. Bye
Karibu.
bye. Enjoy your evening.
Okay, thank you all.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. God bless you.
Okay, thank you.